E. Blackman. You shared your life, you shared your journey, and you just touched on leadership. So as you talked a little bit more about leadership today, I want you to just share some of your life lessons as well. So tell me a bit about leadership, because you seem to be passionate about leadership as well.
Yeah, because you see, as you would realize, I was fortunate. I came in as a clerical officer, but I went to middle management sort of in a hurry, and then into the honors of leadership. SAO, deputy permanent secretary, and and then at the NCF when I was chief cultural officer, I was responsible for programming and so on. And I think I was at NCF then, or I was in the Ministry of Social Transformation then. Between those two agencies, you would know about CAPAM, or you may have heard about CAPAM, right? That is a public service organization in the Commonwealth, right? And the workshop was held in Barbados this particular time. Avril Gollop, she was, spearheading, head officer spearheading it on behalf of Barbados. And I met a guy from Bahamas, and I have to see his name to pronounce it, so I won't call it because I might call it wrong. But he was doing his doctoral thesis using the theme Festival in the Workplace. And he said that the same energy that we bring to Carnival, to Crop Over, to Jean Canoe in Bahamas, he said, why that kind of aggressive spirit and aim for excellence and so on, why cannot that be mirrored in everything that we do? And he called it Festival in the Workplace. So he started to share certain things. I said, but you know something? We have Festival in the Workplace, just that we don't call it that. And I told him about the experiences we had at NCF. When we had 7 festivals back then. Crop Over, NIFCA, Guitar, Jazz, Oystins, Whole Town, and I can't remember what the 7th one was. So you just, and with that layer of festivals, we still had the community development work going on, and one used to feed into the next. So therefore, you work at the community, and the community will produce the donkey carts that you will see parading at Crop Over. You understand? And when you see it was festival time and so on, everybody working, nobody looking at a clock. Everybody just working because the show must go on, the show must come off, it must be excellent. And everybody's showing their all. People did not like to go home. I remember the senior security guard, he think he has passed now, the chief. I remember this, he knocked off, he could have gone home, he come back. It wasn't my right time. What he want me to do? I collect stamps, I could write an envelope. So what you want me to do? Man, I can't go home. You hear the action here. People didn't like to go home because that was the place of action. I remember a time when we were at Culloden Farm, we were all there working, producing tickets and so on. And the then PS passed through and realized we were there working, went back out. And then the next couple of hours, the man turned up with his wife, opened the car trunk, pot of rice and stew, went home and made his wife cook to come back and feed us because we were there working all night. People, that was the commitment, right? But a lot of that came from leadership. Yeah. So that element of festival in the workplace where you just threw all your energies, you were committed, but you made it, how I put it, you're cracking your jokes, you're telling stories, but you're working. And a lot of that was inspired by Ilombe Motley. And then to balance that out then, I had another leader afterward called Alfred Ford. He's dead now. He was the more stoic type of person, but gave you the space to be creative. So you pull from Ilombe, you pull from A.M. Ford, and I found that was a perfect balance. And it was my goal to deal with that. And it was a method that I try to pass on to other people. And I told them it worked. So when I remember other PS came and told me one time, I can't understand. You so calm. You don't quarrel. You don't get vexed. You know. I said, of course, but there are ways to deal with it, right? So that you channel that energy. Instead of becoming angry and flare up and start telling off people and so on, you try to channel that energy into a more creative way, right? And you find that it works. And then what I discovered, right, that people on the outside, when they see everybody and they're having fun, they feel left out. So they sneak in, till they became a part of it as well. So leadership must be creative. But the thing is, you have to, there must be ongoing assessment. When I was at Harvard in leadership, I learned some pointers or principles. And one was sometimes you have to get off the dance floor and go up on the balcony and look down.
Yeah.
When you're up there looking down, you could see the different moves. You could see where people may be going too far outside the square or maybe not far enough. You know, they're bumping into each other. And you make all those observations and you plan your strategy, right? That things can run smooth.
Yeah.
And then you come down off the dance floor and you start implementation based on what you discover, right?
So Ruth, what advice do you have for leaders in our workplaces today? When you look at the kind of leadership we have, do you think that it is effective leadership, even when we look at schools, when we look at the leadership in the workplace? What advice do you have for leaders to ensure that the workplace is conducive for that harmonious, connection with employees?
My thing is, the first thing people have to ask themselves is, why am I in this leadership position? Is it because I want to be here? Is it because I wish to make a contribution? Or it's just that I can get a bigger pay package? If it is just a job, it's going to just be technical. That's what I call technical leadership. You can just follow the rules, or they say that every 5 days you're X, every 3 months you're X, and very sterile, right? But if you see your leadership position as a way to make a positive contribution, as a give back, as a sense of duty to your country, right? And you realize that if you can make the workplace safe and productive, people gonna want to work. People gonna want to produce because they ain't gonna want to be left out. You understand? And you lead by example. Don't ask anybody to do anything that you won't do yourself, right? And you have to be in the trenches with your team. Not you up there supervising and you got to get your hands dirty too. And I think that we don't have enough of that right now. It is more the boss and the others. But it got to be us. We. Those are the words that we need to use. And unfortunately, enough of that is not happening. And I think if we could fix that, we would solve half the problems. Because then together, we can then come up with the solutions that are needed to solve whatever problems may arise.
Okay. So Ruth, we were talking a bit about leadership. And I am sure that you remember I had asked you to share some of the lessons you have learned, because I'm sure that you would have passed through different types of leaders. And we don't want to go through the theoretical leadership roles and so on, because we've heard about transformational leaders and transactional leaders, but we're just here to chat. So just share some of the experiences with the kinds of leaders that you would have experienced, and some of the lessons you would have learned from them.
Okay, I'm going to do that
Yes.
by agency.
Yes, that's okay.
Right? At QEH, in terms of leadership, like I spoke about Kenneth Pyle, I found him to be a leader that encouraged persons, one that gave you the space to develop, to realize whatever potential you had. He never was the type of person that you had to be a male for this, or you had to be a female for that, or you had to be this age or not. As long as he saw that you had the potential, he gave you the encouragement to realize that potential and created the space through which that potential could be realized. So for me, the lesson that I learned at QEH was to have that a leader must be one who encourages his team, right? And one who gives them the space to develop. Guidance, yes, but you ain't breathing over the neck, you ain't shouting and carrying on. But quietly, sometimes authoritatively, you give them the space to develop. That was QEH. When I went to welfare, which could be, you know, when you're in welfare, it could be a very stressful situation because you're absorbing the problems and so on of different persons. But the leadership skills that I saw exhibited by people like Reginald Harper, who has passed on, Hildegard Weeks, who was in probation, who worked, this is a social work agency, but I was next door to ours in Country Road and so on, you know, Sir Clyde Gollop and so. These people created atmospheres that it wasn't all tension. You know, you could crack a joke, you know, and we were encouraged to work as a team together. My weakness was balanced off by your strength. And they knew the staff. They knew how to place people. And that was what I learned at welfare. I had supervisors, managers, bosses, call them what you will, who knew how to place people together and form almost the perfect team, right? When it came to getting the job done. And as then you develop that kind of team spirit with your colleague. So if I have a case, I had a case that was difficult, I could pick up the phone and call Gloria and say, Gloria, man, this case is giving me licks. Any pointers? You know? So those leaders created that atmosphere by placing teams together. They were able to match people, right? And they taught you ways to how to distress. So I found it, some of it came out at QEH too, where at welfare we would gather at other people's house, you know. So tonight, this Friday night, we're going to line by Gloria, and we're going to discuss things and so on. And in doing that, we distress ourselves while having a drink or something like that, right? When I went to NCF, that was now where I saw the creative leadership coming out through people like Elombe Motley, and the discipline leadership coming through people like Ian Ford, right? And they created the type of atmosphere that no idea was foolish. So they were prepared to listen, right? They listened. And even if your idea didn't quite meet the mark, they were able to use whatever your intention was to create something useful through listening. You understand? No idea was too way out or stupid or anything like that. If I move then to Ministry of Agriculture, I saw, and I'm giving you all the positives first.
Yes.
Agriculture. I saw leadership there in a man like Lyle Small, Dr. Winston Small, who was, and he was a technocrat, but he brought to administration that ability, you know, it was like, you know, scientists like to see everything joined up and the diagram looking good. But with all of that, he still saw that you couldn't be stoic all the time, you know? And even in terms of like they used to have seminars once a month where the scientists would share the findings and so on. And in that atmosphere, you could challenge, you could compliment, you know. So you did a good job. He'd be the first to come and tell you, good job. Carson Small was the same thing, a PS there as well, you know. Compliment you. So you feel good that your work got noticed
Yes.
and it was appreciated. So I saw at agriculture that type of leadership come through. People who would compliment you and appreciate what you've done, you know, and let you know that that you've done a good job. Then I went to social transformation. And we have people like Kathleen Haynes and so on, these stalwarts, you know. I mean, who were human, right? They brought a humane approach to the whole thing. So the staff had you in a certain esteem, high esteem. So you always hear people saying admiring things, complimentary things, because the human side of leadership, but firm, you ain't tolerating foolishness, but the human side of nature, you know, you're a leader, but you're a human being too. So you can empathize with your team persons, you know, your team members, and showing that humanity meant so much to the staff. So therefore, if you would not feel a way to go and say, P.S., man, so-and-so and so-and-so, you won't feel intimidated. You know, it was easy to share and to get good advice. And then I went to industry. I was on my own there. There's me now as BS, having to provide, and that was a new ministry created, so to speak, you know, at the time, at that particular time. And I had to pull some elements together that may not have been together before. So people had to learn how to work together in a space that may have been a bit confined compared to what they were accustomed to. And my lesson there, right, I learned from the staff, right? Because after doing the assessment and you realize the different skills that people had and so on, you could use them in the, you know, use their strengths in the particular areas. And what was unique about that ministry for me was I had to deal with the nonprofits, I had to deal with the private sector, I had to deal with the government itself, you know, and I had to deal with the higher-ups as well as the not-so higher-ups, you know. So it was a mixed bag, but I learned from each sector how to use the strengths that they brought to the table to make things work, and then be a good support to the minister at the time, you know. And so my lesson there was how in the public service we can create a machine that had a lot of parts, but yet could run smooth because people respected each other. People sought to understand each other, and people sought to realize the goals that were set, right? Culture, what I learned there is the real informal, I saw it played out, how the informal sector can make all the tensions disappear, because it was not easy at first. But like I told you, soup brought everybody to the table, you know? And then the different heads, you know. I remember when we had the, you know, when government was going to be laying off people. And deep down in my heart, I didn't know how to do that, right? So I asked for permission and got it, went back to the office and tell the heads, come, we got to find a way that Ministry of Culture, Sports, and Youth would not be laying off anybody. So we're going to brainstorm. And that's exactly what we did. And together, we saved government more than $1 million in that ministry. I mean, lay off a fella.
Right.
You understand? And I remember when I was speaking to civil service, I said, listen, if this proposal is not acceptable to you, and, you know, let me know early.
Yes.
Don't come and tell me the Friday because you can come and hand out them pink slips yourself. I won't be handing them out, right? So, and then at the premises office, I learned how the different entities at the top, different ministries, how they came together to create a whole. And even when at levels of CARICOM and so on, there were challenges, because of bringing everybody together and brainstorming, we were able to solve something that may have been plaguing us for a long time. That the solution was right in front of our face, but it was because we listened to each other. We listened to each other, and we got it done. So something happened in each of those spaces that strengthened my resolve as a leader, or taught me a lesson in leadership that I was able to apply when I found myself in the position of leader.
So, Ruth, it seems as though there's a book inside of you that needs to come out. I can call it the Book of Ruth. So, do you have any plans to write a book? Because there's so much within you.
I have actually started, but I pick at it. I need to really take it seriously and sit down and write. And it would be on leadership, but using a case study approach. So that in each agency, I would tell a story to show, using people who were leaders there, or when it became my time to be a leader, to show how we can work together and resolve things. The other thing is agriculture. I saw what brainstorming could do. When you saw the heads, I mean, on Friday evenings, we sit down laming. But yet this body studying what we could do with cotton, what we could do with sugar cane. Things that, I don't know if we're permitted to say this, but things that if we had employed them then, our economic cushion would have been much firmer. And we would not necessarily have fallen through the flooring. But these things happen.
So, Ruth, today we've heard about your life. We've learned some lessons. You've told us to listen. You've looked at leadership. What legacy would you like to leave? If you tell us a bit about that.
I would just like to, in terms of a legacy, as someone who was committed to country and who loves this country and would like to think that she made a contribution in its development, and hope that whatever was done in the past and even being done right now, because I'm still in touch with some people, that it would take us to a higher level. Barbados is better than what Barbados is right now. And the potential is there to be better. And there are a lot of ideas lying in shelves and catching dust that a lot of people have put sweat and tears into. That can be brushed off. They're still relevant, right? And I would like that, if it could go down that, Ruth Blackman reminded the authorities that there are some solutions there. Just go and look for them. Find out the people who suggested them, talk to them, you know. So if I could spark that, that'll be good. But at a personal level, I would like to be remembered in terms of my professional career as someone committed to country and one who wanted to see Barbados prosper. Right.
So thank you, Ruth. She's an administrative professional, and she said she's dedicated to public service. And we know that there's a lot of stuff happening in the public service, and we are hoping and praying that you will be a part of the solution to some of what is happening in the public service. And today we drew inspiration from her words. ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. So today, in the name of country, we want to thank you, Ruth. And as I said, today we heard the book of Ruth. So thank you for being a part of MRD Chatroom.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.